I am recording. I don't play that shit waiting around.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, but look what I did to bust your balls. I gave you a heads up.
Yeah, I see it. I
knew what you're going to wear on your head, right? Ready for me? I knew you. I'm ready for you. Hit you right in the face, you piece of shit.
What else is there?
I am on your ass. You ain't gonna play me. I knew you were coming strong.
I figured as much.
Well, when your goddamn name's Joe Yankee, I had to be prepared. I ain't gonna let you represent, and then we're gonna be sitting here like a jagoff.
That's outstanding.
I don't know if I'm gonna wear this whole thing. It's bright out here, man. Normally I do my podcast in my backyard or different areas, but man, it's brutal.
Wow.
How you doing? I got Joe Curalli Jr. on the podcast.
I'm doing okay, buddy. I'm doing okay. You know, trying to deal with the events that were brought to us, but you know, it's a struggle like everybody else, but we're getting through it.
Hell yeah, we are. Kick it in the ass over here. You haven't been the same since A-Rod and Jeter left anyway, so let's call it for you're still hanging on the past a little bit with those guys.
Times are different, man. You gotta try to roll with the punches, man. But you know, my guys are my guys.
You better believe it. So, man, let's get into this with you. So first I want to say, Joe Yankee, how many guys you think in New York are nicknamed Joe Yankee, or did you kind of were you like one of the first ones to do that you've heard about?
No, so what happened was my group of friends has a lot of Joes. There's like 6 of us. And then one of the friends, you know, someone amongst the circle just happened to just give me the nickname, and it kind of stuck.
Yeah, because some of my closest friends, when I moved to Florida, they're all Joes. Joe Spaghetti, Joe V, Joe G, Joey. They used to actually call us the 4 Horsemen when we went out, and they would just basically call everyone Joe. For years, people thought my name was Joe. And then in my family, I don't know, my grandfather from Italy, from Naples, is Joseph Giuseppe. So everybody names their kids Joe. So, but we have funny nicknames we got, like Joey the Twin, Joe Schmo. What do we got? Tony Joe, Joey the Twin. There's more I can't even remember, but it's funny when you got the name Joe, how, you know what I'm saying? Like how it's just so popular.
Just kind of rolls off the tongue. I mean, there's so many of us. I mean, every group of friends, especially when you're Italian, there's so many. Exactly. There's so many Joes. You just have to do something to decipher between you without mentioning last names.
So let me, one of the reasons I want to have you on my podcast was one of my original guys that I'm doing Zoom with, because I've been doing podcasts for a while now. But I wanted to get your facial expressions and stuff because you're hilarious. But before I get into why you want to do that, first, what the hell are you doing now for like a living? If you can't explain it, can you? Because you're always doing unique things. What is it now? What is this?
So I have I work full-time for the University of Illinois, Chicago as a labor electrician. That's my everyday gig. I've been working there like 8 years now. And then alongside with that, I'm working on a few other side projects. I'm involved with 2 CBD companies, Synergy Bionaturals and Plant Med CBD. And then along with that, I am involved with a company, let's call it a project. It's called Blue Studios, which is basically, it's basically a way to help educate the youth, cost efficiently and easily for them to relate with, easily to relate with one another through videos and through, things of that nature to make it more fun for them to learn. They're all STEM classes, science, technology, engineering, and math, anything from coding, to things about science like gravity, something as simple. It's all the way from K all the way through, senior year high school. There's a variety of, videos, and all of our videos have our actors are also teachers. So just it provides a safe and efficient way for the youth to learn, by just logging online. So we're real excited about that. Things are coming along well. So yeah, man, I'm staying busy.
That's crazy. When I knew you, which thank God for you, my first film, well, you were actually in two of my feature films, Sore Losers and Insanity, but you were such a young guy. I mean, you literally were
Yeah.
just out of high school, weren't you?
Yes, I was Sore Losers. I believe I was 18 or 19 years old, and Insanity, I couldn't have been much older than that, right? How much later was that? A couple years after?
Yeah, that was it. And what was
Yeah, yeah.
you were so helpful with the crew, your young guys for Sore Losers, bringing in the young guys, because I was looking for young, up and coming, obviously looking Italian from the neighborhood. You guys fit it perfectly. I think you were kind of like a little bit of the backbone, especially if you watch the trailer. I focused in a lot on you young guys. And I think a lot of times when you, sometimes when you're making a film or whatever, you just fall into shit. Like some is horrific, but some is great. And I just had so much fun with you guys. You know, obviously working with your cousin was my closest and oldest friend. But it just was really fun doing that stuff with you. And you always had a knack for just kind of falling into stuff. You know what I mean? You're very open-minded and very interested in so many different things, even as a young man, which I found quite interesting. If it wasn't not only film, but you were just interested in all different things, sports, obviously, but just a lot of things. You know what I mean?
I try to broaden my horizons, and I try to stay as open-minded as possible. To me, learning on a daily basis is kind of like my goal. It's nice to have activities that you're very fond of, but the more and more you can learn about something, to me, the bigger advantage that you have. Something as simple as, like, I've been, obviously, everyone that knows me, I'm a very avid golfer.
Yep.
And just from the athletic standpoint is one thing, but that game involves so much thinking and science and, just things that you didn't know existed. And surrounding yourself with people that know more and more about that activity, you start to pick things up and actually look into things you can make yourself better at that game away from the golf course. It's actually crazy. So yeah, man, I try to keep my mind as open as possible, brother, because that's the way, opportunities present themselves to those that are more open-minded.
Yeah, you were always a standout athlete. Do you think you were really just very coordinated, or just because you seem very strong? What do you think, Joe? We're known for being a really good athlete growing up.
Well, a lot of athletics, I guess, is God-given talent. I guess my father was a big influence. He spent a lot of time with me and getting me involved in front of the right people, to whether it be baseball season, football season, kind of like, trying to be a jack of all trades. It's hard to do that without, the advantage that I had was having a good support system around me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I mean, obviously it was never anything to take me to the next level in terms of whatever the case may be. But throughout my life, athletics have really helped me in a lot of ways meet people. Getting involved in sports from a young age helped me get introduced to all types of different cultures instead of being around just people like myself. You bring in outside sources and outside cultures and different people from different walks of life, and that helps develop you into a better human being, as well as the structure and discipline of sports. You try to take all that positive stuff away from athletics, and just being involved in golf and bowling and things like that. It's helped me meet a lot of people, and it's actually been very beneficial in my life.
Yeah, I grew up with parents. My father was a really unbelievable athlete in his past, and my mother was always obsessed with sports. And it seemed like my parents, nothing against them, it seemed like they loved anything sports related, team orientated, more than academics. And that's not a dig on them. They just loved me being a part. I don't care if it was a soccer team, baseball, tennis, wrestling, lifting weights, I played football, all different types of sports. And when you have parents like, I know your father, you have a wonderful relationship with him, and you have a father that, and both parents for that matter, that love what you do, get behind you. And I also think it builds a lot of confidence. you know, when you have parents that really, especially when you go back to my time, which was like the 70s and 80s, when sports weren't, parents were involved with sports, but not like now, if that makes sense.
You know what? It seems like there's a lot of things. I believe a lot of that is the times. I was blessed with being able to have a father that went to work and a mother that stayed at home. That family structure was kind of there. My mother made it possible for my dad to be able to kind of roam around with me and get involved in my practices and my games. And then sometimes the seasons would overlap. So you have to come off a baseball game and go to football, practice. And then kind of like just having the ability to have that hunker down at home versus in today's society, both parents are working, both parents are trying to make a living. Things are more expensive now. I mean, it's just a different, the structure of the household is completely different, I believe, these days than it was back. Even when I was younger in the 90s, early 90s, mid 90s, it was just a different time.
Yeah, and things seem like it was a little more fun. I think in the 70s and 80s, it wasn't as organized. So like now a lot of kids, if you do certain things, as you know, they'll play only one sport, right? Because they want to get a scholarship in it, or it's just a different type of vibe compared to when I was playing sports, because we were pushed to play multiple different sports, right? And nowadays, I think it's almost a reverse where a lot of parents just, which is fine, want to focus in on their child, maybe focusing or narrowing in one, maybe two, but for the most part, one that they're excelling in. You say?
You would say now, or in today's day, your several sport athlete is more along the lines of someone that's really, really special. Fortunately and unfortunately, in my opinion, sports have gotten really, really competitive, man. I mean, these kids are training from the time they're in late grade school. And right away they get involved with some type of program that, if it's basketball, the AAU, or, even youth football, is extremely competitive. It's tough to have a kid get involved in a bunch of different sports if he wants to really, really excel, to kind of get to that next level. Like you said, when we were younger, it was kind of drilled into our heads that you want to do as many things as possible. And the dynamic has definitely shifted in that perspective.
Yeah, and you're known for being an incredible bowler locally. What is your average? I don't even know. I mean, it's always been off the chart.
Our due to the virus, our league got cut down short this year, but I was averaging right around 230.
And how many 300 games have you had?
I have 27.
Unbelievable. I used to hang out with a professional golfer. This goes back to the 80s and 90s. I even invested in him to go to Vegas. He didn't do that well that time, but he worked still at did I say golf? I meant bowling. I invested in him to go bowl in Vegas. I think you have a major tournament there every year. Is that where it's at? Is it Vegas?
Yeah, they got a couple of them. There's one called the YANKee in Cincinnati, and then I forgot what the one in Vegas is called, but yeah, there's a couple big ones in Vegas every year. They still have them.
Did you ever consider becoming a professional bowler and going that route? Because I mean, you're really exceptional.
There's a couple reasons, really. First and foremost, I really believe that if I had really given my all 100% attention to bowling, I probably may have been able to crack the professional circuit.
Mm-hmm.
There's different things about the professional circuit, like their lane conditions are different. It's a little bit more different averaging high in their environment than versus the local bowling environment. But that being said, I was always pretty good at bowling, but I never really loved it like I loved football or I loved the other sports. Sure. And let's face it, not to knock bowling, because it's a great game and a lot of people love it. But that environment of kind of being in a bowling alley all the time really didn't appeal to me when I was younger. I mean, it's a lot of traveling, and you're going from bowling alley to bowling alley. You're not outside. Back in the days, everyone was smoking in there. Now bowling has become more of an entertainment center to where it's like cosmic bowling, and it's fun, and it's everything's fresh and clean. It wasn't like that back in the day. It was a lot of dingy, dungy
I get it.
areas, and
Yeah.
you know, it just didn't appeal to me as a young kid.
I know. And I used to collect money in all bowling alleys, restaurants, nightclubs, bars, gentlemen's clubs. So sometimes it gets overwhelming. I always thought about doing stand-up comedy, but being in the bars all the time with the smoke and dealing with alcoholics, drug addicts, the whole 9 yards, I just couldn't see myself then hanging out in those clubs all the time besides working in them, in and out of them, right? It's kind of like, and also I think sometimes in your case, maybe bowling was an escape. It was something maybe you didn't want to take to do professional. It was something you wanted to do with your friends, colleagues, meet once a week or something like that.
Yeah, I predominantly bowled on a Monday. And the Monday, Mondays, it was probably from, our league goes from 4 to 7:30. Typically there's not really a whole lot to do on Monday, and I bowled locally close to my house, and it was just like you said, it was competitive, and there was some gambling and stuff going on there where you can make some money, but it wasn't, to me, those guys that take bowling to the next level are in the bowling alley all the time. They're bowling 200, 300, 400 games a week.
Yeah.
The most I ever bowled, the most games I ever really bowled in a week on a consistent basis was like 12 or 14. I didn't love it like that. I didn't love it to really dedicate everything to it. It's just something that didn't really appeal to me that much.
What is your next move is golf. You seem to be excelling in golf. Do you think you'll get as good in golf as you were in bowling, let's say?
It would be nice to say that, but golf is a game that requires a ton of practice. You get to that threshold to where your athleticism can only take you so far. And in order to crack to that next level, to get better and better and better, requires a lot of practice time that I simply don't have. Mm-hmm. But I recently became a part of a country club in Flossmoor called Idlewild Country Club, Flossmoor, Illinois. And I met a lot of really great guys there, having a lot of fun. And it's pretty competitive over there with tournaments and whatnot. If hopefully, this virus passes and we get back to being able to do what we do over there, and just being able to be in that environment, be around those guys and kind of compete amongst one another makes it really fun for me. I really enjoy it.
What's your handicap in golf right now?
Right now, I think that handicaps start releasing May 1st. You start recording, I believe. Mm-hmm. But if I had to give you, a guess, I would say I'm anywhere. I can bounce anywhere between 8 and 11.
Yeah, and you don't get to play living in Chicago nearly as much as, say, someone like myself in Florida, right? No, there's a golf course right this way. It's right around this corner, Joe.
Yeah,
I live right on a golf course right here.
We do the best we can. We some of the hardcores that I play with, we get out there when it's in the high 30s and early 40s if we can, and then if we can bundle up. But it's the courses, they take precautions and shut certain things down, and it's not really the same as being in Florida or an environment to where the weather is conducive to you being out there every single day and whatnot. So, yeah, it's a little bit more of an advantage to be down in the South.
Yeah, that's for sure. I used to live on one of the longest golf courses in the country, Hunters Creek. You had to take a cart. And I used to hear Tiger used to practice on that, his long game. Not sure if that's true. I'm sure he played everywhere in Orlando, right, when he was living in Islesworth.
Sure.
But living in Orlando, there's so many beautiful golf courses. Some are literally right down the block from me, Bay Hill, Islesworth, countless. I live in Metro West, so I'm on Metro West golf course, which isn't known to be the best. But I think Arnold Palmer was involved with this one. Then the Golden Bear. Jack built another one in Windermere as well, behind Bay Hill, and Islesworth. So there's so many golf courses in the vicinity of just me, like 10 miles. So, I don't even golf. Does that make sense? Probably not.
There's always time to learn, Rich.
I used to play, and I was really decent, believe it or not. So who gives a shit what I used to do? Listen, so let's get into you now. I've been saying if there's anyone I've ever met in my life that I think should have his own podcast is you. I love the way you voice your opinion when it comes to sports. If I agree or disagree, I think you're hilarious when I talk to you about sports or when you're posting things on social media. Did you ever consider being a sports announcer or getting involved with your own podcast? And if not, why?
You know, as far as being an announcer is concerned, I mean, it was always something that maybe was like a pipe dream. You know, I obviously love sports a lot. My friends, everyone I am associated with, the common bond that we have is every one of us are pretty much sports fanatics in one way or the other.
Yes.
There's always a debate. There's always a topic of conversation. There's always a ball bust. You know, there's always stuff like that involved. So, you know, obviously it has crossed my mind, you know, when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the podcast thing, that's obviously more of a reality. You and I have spoke about it before.
Yes.
I guess it's just a matter of getting something ironed down to where I actually, you know, put the idea into motion, and just really getting it done, because I enjoy talking about stuff that I love, and I think it would be fun.
Yeah, I don't know who would be better. I honestly don't. You have so many friends too, and I'm kind of obsessed with sports, mainly, you know, with teams, going to games. I love watching Pardon the Interruption or Highly Questionable, maybe Around the Horn, but I also, you know, Skip and Shannon, if it's Stephen A. I would say those are the things I watch on television would be the most. But I don't do a lot of sports on my podcast because I haven't had a lot of people that are obsessed with sports, maybe to a certain degree. And I didn't want to just fall into a category, because I was considering my podcast just to kind of be based around sports because I love sports. But then I kind of became where I just said, you know what, I just want to interview everybody that I find interesting. But you, I think you have to do a podcast. That's the only reason I'm having this podcast with you. Is because I want you to start your own podcast, you asshole. You would be hilarious. You are so informative on many different things. What's funny, too, is about you. You were born and raised in Chicago. You're a diehard Yankee fan. You almost fight everyone from your hometown regarding, it could be whoever. You kind of, though, pick on everybody. You're fair with that. I like it. Of course, you're going to stick up for the Yankees, but when they're not doing the job maybe they should be doing, you'll call them out on that as well. Am I wrong?
Without a doubt, man. No one is nobody should not be. Everyone should be held accountable. So,
absolutely.
You know, my love is, my father was a Yankee fan, and I became a Yankee fan. I've been a Yankee fan for very many years, but, you know, if they suck, then they suck, and they should be told that they suck. That's the way I look at it.
Is like a lot of our Italian immigrant family members, they came into New York. Is that kind of what your father, was he originally from New York, or your grandfather? Is that how that started?
You know, our grandparents, you know, that kind of, from that time period, like you said, with all the Italians coming into New York, back in the day when my father was young, there was a bunch of Italians on the Yankees, you know, Joe DiMaggio, if it was, you know, Yogi Berra. So it was kind of like a thing, you know, kind of like a second, if you're from Chicago, like a second thing to kind of root for the Yankees, just because of, at that point in time, you know, that was kind of a big deal. So that's kind of where it stems from. Ironically, though, my father was a huge Mickey Mantle fan, who he obviously wasn't Italian, but
but he was the most loved, I would say, overall.
He was, to me, he was, you know, everyone talks about Babe Ruth. I think the best Yankee was Mickey Mantle. That's just my opinion. But, you know, it kind of all stemmed from there. But the good thing about the Yanks is, you know, when you think about all the stuff that's happened over the years and you see stuff on, let's say, ESPN or, you know, some type of classic, win or lose, you remember what you were doing on that day. And 9 times out of 10, if it was a Yankee moment, it was all of us together somehow in some way. And the Yankees have pretty much, you know, personified family for us in one way or the other. So that's, you know, that's one of the things that I'm, you know, very grateful for. And of course, the banter amongst friends and stuff, that's what it's all about. You know, I know I'm going to take a shellacking. I know my friends are going to give me a shellacking about stuff, and they expect to get one back when they're playing well.
Yeah, my mom and father are Southsiders. I ended up a Cubs fan, I would say, because of my cousin Schmo. He's obsessed with the Cubs. Your cousin Jimmy knows him very well. He even has a tattoo of an alligator with wearing a Cubs hat, waving a flag. And I used to actually, in the old days, go to more games at Comiskey for the Sox because they had night games. And a lot of us, as you know, if you didn't go in the summer, a lot of the games were when we were in school. We couldn't go until they did the lights, which was later. So as much as I was going to Comiskey and as much as I was going to Sox games, even my mother and father, I think they were more Sox fans. I gravitated more towards the Cubs. So did some of my other family members, being from Cicero. But you, on the other hand, I always said we kind of have, and I wanted to do a documentary on this, where Chicago separates, and either you're a Cubs fan or a Sox fan, right? And you go to war with each other.
Absolutely.
Right. But then when the Bears come, everybody falls back in love. Kind of with the Blackhawks and the Bulls. But it's so funny. We will want to kill each other regarding the Cubs and Sox. But as soon as football starts, it's like
everyone becomes on the same team.
Yeah, and you're right. In your case, though, you weren't south or north. You were always New York. And I'm always in New York, which is kind of funny. And I always bust your balls when I'm there. But how did you find growing up from such a young age, being involved with that, especially not being able to watch the games and all that? Like,
the biggest, I was primarily involved in watching lots and lots of football when I was young. Like when I was in my grade school times, back in from let's say 89 to 94, it was mostly just football orientated. My father was a Yankee fanatic and all that. And I would just kind of I played baseball, but football was
our
really
gig.
That was everything.
That's our gig.
Yeah. And then once high school started rolling around, and then the Yanks, got Derek Jeter, and then they started cruising. It became a little bit more fun. If you want to call it fair weather or not, I understand. But it became more fun to follow baseball, especially if you were a Yankee fan. So I kind of rolled into baseball maybe sophomore year of high school, and then really started getting involved in, Yankee this and Yankee that, kind of gelling with my dad and then my brother and my cousins, and just kind of really, really getting involved. And then when they took off and went on that run, it kind of just started flying from there, and you were able to watch when you were able to watch. I mean, a lot of the games were on TV because they were good. During the playoffs and whatnot, but it's obviously not like now where you can stream them and things of that nature. So yeah, baseball became a big love for me more along the lines towards high school.
Right.
So,
and you're more now you're a Bears. I'm confused. Are you a Giants fan over Bears? I mean, are you more? I think you're Blackhawks. I don't know if you're.
So hockey for me really, I really never got into hockey.
Right.
It's just not my thing. I root for the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
If they're in it, right. Obviously. So around the 90s, while the Yanks were at their peak and whatnot, is right when Emmitt Smith came into the league, and I kind of liked him, and
that's right.
I kind of jumped on the Dallas Cowboys bandwagon.
Sure.
And that was a cool thing back in the 90s, but they've been kind of shit since then. So now I kind of take a beating for that as well, because they just seem to not be able to get anything together since 1995. So that's just more of a reason for my Chicago friends to hate me.
Right. You're not a diehard Bears fan or anything like that, right?
No, my father had tickets when we were younger, and once PSLs came along, they became a little bit too much to deal with, and he got rid of them, and then I started hating the Bears ever since then for no reason.
You're so funny with that shit. Bulls. I thought you liked Jordan. Were you with the Jordan thing or no?
Yeah, when I was younger. When I was younger, I was really into Michael, and then as I start to hear more and more, and as I got older and started to have some run-ins with some of the people that were associated with Michael and Michael himself, I kind of found out the kind of guy Michael is, and Michael and I don't really get along too well anymore.
Have you been watching the documentary, or have you watched the new one?
Yeah, man, Michael. I mean, here, my friends, the long-standing joke is everyone knows I hate Michael Jordan as a person, so they all bust my balls. But Michael, Michael was the best. Michael was the best player to ever touch a basketball.
Sure.
There's no doubt about that. But just kind of having some run-ins with him and some of the other things I kind of know about him, it kind of makes me from looking up to someone like that as a kid and finding out who they really are as a person, I kind of disappointed me a little bit.
You son of a bitch. You know what's hilarious about you, and that's what I think why you need your podcast is, I don't know many people that were obviously born in a certain area, city, state, that doesn't necessarily like at least one team or loves one team. You don't. The whole podcast, which would be hilarious, would be the guy who almost despises all his local teams or doesn't like them. Because that's why I think when I see you on social media, which is hilarious, and you get more comments, I would say, than anyone else I know regarding sports, is because you have a lot of family members, friends, colleagues from Chicago. You're from there. So it's like you are taking on an army. Right? I mean, really. So when you post things, it's against, I don't get my feelings hurt. I love it. You are usually attacking where you're from and what we love and what we believe in. And you still live in Chicago. It's hilarious. I mean,
sure. And I get the whole, you hate, you're from Chicago, you hate Chicago thing. I am a firm believer that all sports teams are a business, right?
Of course.
And all businesses are set up in a certain shop, and that shop happens to set up in a certain city, right?
Yeah.
So while people like to believe that fandom and location is synonymous, I just don't feel that way. I love Chicago. Yeah. I love everything about Chicago. I think it's the greatest city in the country in a lot of ways. Certain things about the city obviously bothers me, but that's not sports related. But that being said, I don't feel like just because you are born somewhere that you have to agree with or just happen to have blind loyalty to that team basically because you were born there. There's lots of things about the Bears organization that I just can't get behind.
Sure.
There's lots of things about the Cubs organization for very many years. They recently righted a lot of their wrongs, but there's things about them I can't get behind. There's things about the Sox I can't get behind.
Sure.
The Bulls are a disaster. So, I mean, and I never really got into hockey, but it seems like once the old regime kind of died off in that perspective, look what happened. All of a sudden the Blackhawks are successful again. I remember when my dad was telling me that they were giving the tickets away at bars, there was 4,000 people in the stands. So, again, I'm not a huge hockey person, but that kind of fell into that line too. And obviously all this makes for great banter and develops good friendships, and we have lots of informative and productive arguments, and it's a lot of fun, and it's just what friendship to me is all about.
And I think you get a lot of attention, regardless if you want it or not, because you don't fall. And I could talk about it all the time. When we're younger, we get programmed, right? Our parents, we end up liking what they like. We eat the foods, of course. We all fall under that umbrella of being programmed by our city, our culture, our nationality, everything. In your case, you almost, I'm not saying you fought it, but when it comes again to social media, it's hilarious with you because I think people like myself are waiting for someone like you because we know you're going to be coming after us. So it's not like we're, okay, today the Bears are playing. Yay, go Bears. We show up banter. Yay, Bears, good luck, or whatever, all the same old bullshit. You are putting something up there saying, hey, Bears, you're almost setting up. You're almost your own bully. You're not a bully. It doesn't, your own, I don't know what it is, but it's like you want to set the furnace kind of with all of us and get that going, right? Am I wrong on that? Like,
No, part of it, of course, is just like, like anything else. When we bust chops, we get people riled up, of course. But, and I think a lot of people don't realize is the only way, see, especially with the Bears, you still have people in Chicago that live and die about the 85 Bears, right? The Bears following is very, very loyal.
Of course.
And people get heated. They get aggravated when you say things about that, right? But their loyalty in a lot of ways for very many years is what keeps them from getting better. The owners see the money coming in. The owners see the seats. Yeah, the owners see the people are coming in, and they're not spending a whole ton of money to put a great product on the field. I mean, they just got Khalil Mack, so I'll give them that. But they don't spend a ton of money to get the superstars, to get people there, because they know they're going to be there anyway. So when I'm actually, in a weird way, I'm actually coming to bat for them when I'm saying, listen, you bunch of dopes, you're so passionate about these guys and they don't give a shit about you. You know what I mean? And it bothers me. It bothers me to see so much blind allegiance, to a team. That stinks. And what I mean by stinks is their front office is horrible. They pull the same routine every single year. And it's just like everyone gets their hopes up, and then all of a sudden one part of it, the defense is good, and then the offense stinks. You get to the Super Bowl, you got Rex Grossman, you got Kyle Orton. They don't do what they need to do to get to that next step for very, very many years. They're trying to get it right, but it's just aggravating seeing all these people get behind a team that just they never do the right thing.
Yeah, that sound like the Cubs for many, many decades. Decades, right?
Yes. The Cubs did it for 85, 90 years.
Yeah, because they know Wrigley ain't going anywhere, and they're going to sell out, and they don't give a shit. There's a waiting list for season ticket holders, so yeah.
When you leave the game, you walk outside and you do a 360, and in any which way there's a bar, there's a party, there's this, there's that. You're in Wrigleyville. It's a little harder seeing. It's a little harder to get people over to the south side because obviously I'm not saying anything bad about Bridgeport, but it's not built up like Wrigleyville is.
You're not
kidding.
What I'm saying? Not even comparison. So
it's not it's a hard sell, and it's a diehard Sox fans that I know that have been very diehard for very many years. It's kind of frustrating to them, because even when they're in first place, they have a hard time packing the joint. The Cubs can be 40 and 90, and the place is packed.
Absolutely.
So it's the same old story.
I think too, and I ran into this black gentleman on the airplane. I was wearing my Bears hoodie, and when I was traveling once, he brought up something that was quite interesting. He's a Bears fan, and he asked me regarding when they're picking quarterbacks a lot of times. He thinks, not that they're racist necessarily, but they pass on so many unbelievable quarterbacks throughout the years that were of color, and he never understood that. And I never looked at it from that perspective.
Right.
It's kind of interesting when you think about that. Again, not saying that the Bears are racist or anything, but I don't know, why does that keep happening in your opinion?
It's tough. It's tough to say. You don't want to stigmatize everybody, but after seeing, it's one thing or the other, you start to think one way, or either that, or they're completely incompetent.
Exactly.
I mean, look at a guy like Deshaun Watson, who is at Clemson, and he beats Alabama. He competes for a national title. He wins the national title.
Yeah.
He shows all the promise of a successful winning quarterback, and a lot of people a lot of people don't put a high enough premium on the fact that he is able to win at the highest level.
Sure.
And they pass on him for a guy that played, I think, 13 games as a collegiate player. They're basically going on speculation that he has, that he has some promise and talent. And then all of a sudden you look at Deshaun Watson and the success that he's having, making the playoffs and bringing his team to the next level. And the Bears are stuck with the guy that is really having a problem adapting to the professional game. I don't see him ever being a Pro Bowl style. When you're the second pick of the draft, people want you to start doing things, and I just don't see him being that guy. I just think that they really, really bombed out on that pick.
Yeah, but they bomb out on a lot of picks regarding quarterbacks. I mean, this seems to be like a reoccurring event right? I'm just
Correct.
saying. I mean, this isn't just him. And this has been from, I mean, Jim McMahon was really, there was other quarterbacks. I'm not saying they weren't bad. To become at a pro level is unbelievable in itself. But I think the Bears over the years have had a lot of opportunities to get, you know, a franchise quarterback. And for some reason, they just can't seem to do it.
Well, people have thrown negative stigmatism at Jay Cutler. A lot of people don't like him. A lot of people this, he's that. But, you know, when Jay Cutler is probably the most talented quarterback that you've ever had, that says a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting point. Unbelievable. And this is why you need your own podcast, because you will go on and on and on. And you're really good with your memory, with names, with all that type of shit, man. You got to get your voice out there, Joey. I'm telling you right now. Even if I got to help you, I told you we could do this. Now with Zoom, I think you'd be even better. Because before it was just more audio that I was going to show you on Lipsian. It's not that expensive to start your own podcast. I even did a podcast talking about how to do a podcast, but I can show you now if you ever want to do it. I definitely want you to do it. But the one thing I would say to you, you got to realize it does take a lot of time and effort, and it can't be something, you know, you do once, like say you do 3 times in a month and you quit for 6 months. You know what I mean? You got to be like kind of be realistic and say, okay, I'm going to do 2 podcasts a week. Even if it's just your opinion or if you want to interview other people, consistency, I think, would be the key. But again, with your social media, I think you got unbelievable skills regarding how to build. It's almost an anti-following. That's what makes you so unique. You're on the flip side, I always thought, of what everybody else, because everybody else will be like, I'm a Bears fan. I'm going to talk about the Bears all the time. I'm going to talk about the Cubs. I'm going to talk about this, right? You're not bogged down with that. You just are very blunt, honest, and you kind of expose a lot of people in their teams. So I think that's hilarious.
It's something that I'm definitely interested in. And now that things have become more simplified in terms of like getting the capabilities of doing a podcast more simpler without, you know, really needing a lot of equipment or needing a lot of this or needing a lot of that. I think that I can, without question, find the time to get involved in starting a podcast, especially with your help. Like I said, it's been something that I've been interested for a very long time. And sports is something that I'm very passionate about. Like I said, my friends, everybody that I'm associated with on a regular basis, everybody falls under the same category. We all have the common bond of being kind of sports fanatics.
Mm-hmm.
And for better or for worse, that will make things more simplistic and getting that kind of up and running.
Yeah, because the comments are hilarious. Your friends seem genuine. You kind of bait each other. You could just see it all coming. It's hilarious. It's great stuff. I'm going to wrap it up with one thing, cigars now. You become like a cigar aficionado. What are you doing now? You don't sell cigars, but you love smoking them when you golf, like a lot of Chicagoans, including your cousin and a lot of people we know. But it seems like you're kind of taking things to the next level. You're always talking about the different styles and what's going on with you?
Yeah, man. You know, I've been smoking cigars for a while. I recently, well, I shouldn't say recently. Let's say 6 or 7 years ago, I got involved. I started working a little bit at this lounge in Forest Park, Illinois, called Casa de Perros.
Okay.
The lounge happened to change ownership. The lounge changed ownership into new owners. And I was a member over at Casa de Monte Cristo in Countryside, and the same guys bought that place. So they kind of saw that I took an interest in cigars. They asked me if I wanted to work there. And I started working there and got the new place up and running with them as an employee. And throughout that time, I learned a lot about cigars, different makes, different countries, different wrappers, different, fillers, and just became more and more, informed on them, as you will. And, funny is, it turns out the guy that started with me working there, this kid, Julian Tools, who became, one of my really good friends, him and his buddy and my buddy, Brandon Prince, happened to buy that place from the owners now. So now they own the place.
Wow.
So yeah, it's gotten to be fun. They just took the shop over, and we have we've been having a lot of fun, and COVID has kind of put a damper into things for a little bit, but we're certainly looking forward to them kind of coming into their own as this virus eventually lifts, and hopefully when the summer sets in, things will get fun. But yeah, cigars have become a passion of mine as well, and like I said, I have a lot of my friends that kind of share the same passion. So it's kind of a common ground amongst all of us, and things have gotten, more and more kind of, how can I say, more and more in depth in the culture.
Yeah, and my father had a billiard store, and then he had a section for cigars. But I don't know if you remember, during Sore Losers, I've never really been addicted to anything, maybe fitness or smoothies or stupid shit. We were doing a lot of shooting, and we were smoking cigars. And not only were we shooting when we were shooting the film, or smoking when we're shooting, then afterwards we were all going to dinner, and then this is before the smoking ban, because that was 99, which sounds crazy how old that film is. But then I was hanging out with a lot of my friends, Seastrom and all, like lawyers, friends downtown, Jim, a lot of Italian guys. Now I caught myself smoking 2-3 cigars a day.
Yeah, it gets to be it gets to be an addicting thing, because it's just it's really, really enjoyable. It's social and enjoyable, and you find yourself kind of falling, victim of habit. So some people think that's a great thing, and some people think it's not so great, but it's working out for me right now.
Yeah, it's fun. And I can't do now at my age. I had to quit cigars altogether because I was waking up wanting a cigar. Now it becomes part of your identity too. Like everyone who sees you, let's go have a cigar. Let's have a cigar. After lunch, let's have a cigar. Especially with our culture, after dinner, let's go for a cigar. Especially in Chicago, I got to say, a lot of my friends, I don't care if they want to sit in the garage. They want a cigar before you know it.
Oh yeah. Sometimes that's the best time.
I was shooting Sore Losers, and I was in the scene. I was smoking a cigar while I was lifting weights. It was legit. It wasn't. People are like, Rich, your movie should have been called Cigar, and they thought we're ripping off Sopranos. I never even saw Sopranos. I says, this is ridiculous, because while I'm shooting, there are long days. We would just, if we're doing a bachelor party scene or whatever, you light up a cigar. I'm trying to direct the film, be in it, and you're just doing it. It was hilarious. So.
Like you said, man, after a certain point in time, it does become a part of your identity. Lots of people that, not lots of people that know me, have asked me lots of questions about cigars, and I'm happy to help them. And you kind of find a common ground. There's lots of, and I think the cigar culture has kind of gotten to a different level now. There's lots, even women are smoking cigars now.
Yeah,
it's pretty incredible. It's a whole different environment these days, but it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, brother, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks for being on here. You're always the best to talk to.
Rich, I always enjoy hearing from you, and I'm looking forward to maybe getting a podcast started. And, it's who knows? Let's see what the future brings us, my friend.
Tell me when you're ready, because basically what I'll do is I'll set my phone up and I'll just show you kind of how I did it. Or next time I come to Chicago, we could do it. I know sometimes that's really hard with my schedule with traveling, but I would definitely make it a point to come and see you, and I could set the damn thing up with you. You don't even have to wait that long. We can set this up with you. And even if you go on YouTube, it's not nearly as complicated as you think. Even almost doing the podcast and uploading it, that's where the time is. Setting it up is going to be very simple. And you could start off like $30, $35 a month. That'll probably be the amount of material that you'll be putting up. But it could be very simple, and I think you'd be great at it, man. I'm telling you. So. That's it.
Looking forward to it, brother. It's always good to hear from you, man.
All right. Say hello to your family and stay safe.
Absolutely. Send some of that sunshine up here to Chicago, brother.
I know. I live it.
I know. I'm jealous, man.
You got to get down there. I tell your cousin, and I tell everybody, don't wait till you're 50, 60, or 70 years old. You'll get here and kick yourself in the ass and go, why didn't I come when I had the energy? You know what I mean? People wait too long.
Brother, I fully agree with you.
Make your move is what I'm saying.
Let's do it.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Brother.
All right.
Talk to you.
All right. Bye.